This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Welcome to Season 3 of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty alongside my co-host Darren Smith. Each week, we'll go in-depth with guests, industry experts, and we'll even share our own experiences, all with the goal of demystifying the independent film process. This season, it's all about the script, from the first spark of an idea to a polished final draft, breaking it down for scheduling, budgeting, and ultimately shooting. We'll walk through every step it takes to get from page to production. Welcome to Truly Independent. Welcome to another episode of Truly Independent. I'm Garrett Batty, and with me is my co-host, Darren Smith. Darren, how are you?
So good, man. Glad to see you. You made it safely back from being overseas.
You can probably hear in my voice, I'm a little jet lagged. We've been in Romania for the past week, but it's good to be back. And I'm excited, especially today, to talk to our guests about an amazing film that they have made. We want to welcome to the show with us Boston McConaughey and Renny Grains. Am I saying your name correctly?
McConaughey Grains, yeah.
Thank
you. I slaughtered them both.
Yeah.
Good. We give no favoritism here. Everybody gets their name slaughtered.
Perfect. For having us.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so great for coming on. So thank you very much for joining us. And I'm really excited to talk to you about your experience as filmmakers.
Yeah, cool. And I just want to throw it out, the exact time we're recording this, the Artemis 2 is going around the dark side of the moon.
Right now.
Right now. And my brain is there. I'm just like, they're doing it. This is so cool.
Okay, you can have that on your second screen.
Oh, no.
And give us any updates that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had it up on a second window before we got on this call. I was like, this is happening. It's history in the making.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Good. Okay, so by way of introduction, and you guys got to forgive us. We don't do a lot of show research or anything like that, even prep.
We just know you.
We just know you, and I've been aware of you all for a while. It's just you're in the Utah-based film community, and certainly an iconic filmmaking duo in this Utah film-based community, and now beyond. So, I've admired your work, and honestly followed some of your behind the scenes and the making of, and all the just DIY mentality that you've put into at least to Alien Country, and so I'm excited to kind of just get into that and hear what you're willing to share. But first of all, just give us kind of an intro of that. Who are you, and why are you guests on this episode?
You want to go first?
Ready? Go. Hi.
I'm Renny.
And I'm Boston. And we're
done that a few times.
Yeah, we're filmmakers. Which we're talking a lot now that maker means producer. And so film producers, I think, is first and foremost what you have to be as an independent creator these days. And I focus mostly on directing, writing and directing. I'm less in front of the camera, but Renny got her background,
Yeah, I started in front of the camera, auditioning and doing the grind, pounding the pavement, trying to move to LA, all that good stuff, and kind of fell into producing by way of commercials and YouTube. And then Alien Country was my first foray into feature film producing, and I just jumped in head first. It was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're doing it.
Yeah, so we had the one sci-fi action comedy feature under the belt and are working on a bunch of new projects. But we've been doing all kinds of short production, YouTube production, and commercial production for over 15 years. So yeah, we've been doing it.
Amazing.
Doing an amazing job at it, by the way. I mean, I wouldn't discount your short film or even commercial, because if any listeners have been on Facebook in the past several years, you've probably seen commercials that you all have produced.
Thank you.
You always do very, very fun, super fast, super well edited, just well done. Those kind of long format commercials. Is that right? Am I describing those correctly?
Yeah, I was head of production at an ad agency called Creatively, and I was lucky enough to be able to work on really fun long form content, like you're saying, and like 4-minute commercials that could be cut down. And Boston got to direct a lot of those actually, and I got to direct several of them as well. But I was the go-to like budget and producer person over there at that agency. So it definitely kept me busy while we were at the same time in post on Alien Country and getting that into the world as well. So
Yeah. Maybe we can go back to the beginning. Like, where did the idea for Alien Country even come from? And how did you both come to the project and start working on the project in those early stages? And what was that process like?
Yeah, I think the script originally I started writing before we were together, and I think while we were dating, I was like, oh, I want to make a movie. I really just wanted to make movies. I was like, oh, I gotta get my feature film script done. And I graduated from film school, and I with this idea to make a modern day western, and that was kind of the idea. And then to make like a super long story short, I got to interview Stan Lee at a comic convention, the Salt Lake City comic convention called Fan X, and he basically just graciously just gave his time, and he was like, oh, okay, cool, like you work for the convention, sure, I'll come and sit down. And I asked him about writing, and he just described that whenever he would come up with a story, he tried to not write for other people but just write a story that he would enjoy reading. And at the time I'm working on this script, and I was like, well, am I really writing something that I would enjoy? Is this something that I would go out and see? And it was like modern day Western. I think I was just trying to use what resources, limited scope I had here in Utah, which is great Western, vistas and yada yada. I was like, but what are the movies I love? And so I started thinking about, all the different films. And I was like, well, this is really missing some supernatural, fantastic element, and certainly like monsters. I was like, I love creature movies, so why don't I make a creature movie? And the creature that felt at home here in Utah was aliens. So I started diving into alien lore, but wanted to come up with my own story and own our own thing. So I basically, at that point was like, you know what? I got to finish. I'm going to rewrite the script, page 1, and it's going to be an alien movie. So I rewrote this movie about aliens, and I was like, and we're gonna make this movie. This is going to be my thing. And so I finished the script, and that was in 2014, and we didn't shoot it till 2020. So 6 years. Draft 1 was done, in 2014, and
that was like a $20 million version of the movie. We had to scale it down quite a bit. And in the process of that, I actually jumped in the writing process and helped rewrite. And I was very invested in writing a female character that was strong and sassy and smart and had some real concerns, with her dreams and her future and family planning. And so it was really a labor of love between the two of us to just get the script itself into a place that was doable and shootable and quote, low budget enough. Probably still should have been a higher budget than one we did it for. But
we like to say we basically took all of the events that happened in season 1 of Stranger Things. We just wrote into a 90-minute script. And then on top of that, it was like, the first versions were really about this guy trying to win over a girl. And then as we grew up and our relationship progressed, it was more about this couple trying to stay in a committed relationship and the struggles that couples can have doing that. So
we liked to say back in the day that it's like any amateur can fall in love, but it takes a real professional to stay in love.
Very nice.
So that's it. Yeah, that was the growth and the coming of age story that is Alien Country, I guess now. So.
Yeah. I remember seeing it. You guys did a premiere, 2 years ago or so, maybe?
Yeah.
2 or 3. And was just blown away, for a first feature, right? This is their first feature for both of you. That's a big movie, and you guys pulled off a lot on, I'm sure, a very limited budget.
Yeah.
So maybe walk us through, how did you go from, what was the point where you're like, okay, we're actually making this in those 6 years? And how did you go about raising the money, putting the production together, getting cast and crew, etc.? Walk us through that process, because that's the dream for most of us listening to this, and even those that are co-hosting this. Like, how do we get movies made? How is everybody else doing it? What can I learn from it? So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, our funding, the story is kind of interesting because it definitely was shot in phases. There was a couple things that were stacked against us, but also became benefits, which is one, we began production in 2020 during COVID, which was both a, blessing and a curse in that, there was a lot of things that you had to consider when you're doing a production to keep it safe and whatnot. but it also meant a lot of people were available because there wasn't
Mhm.
as much work. There weren't big productions, scaling up,
More rentals
and
available.
the rental costs were pretty low at that time.
People were
So
just like, "Hey, it's not being used. Why don't you come use these?"
yeah, we got like, good indie discounts on a lot of equipment, like our lenses, our cameras and things. But so that was really helpful. And we basically had raised, and I'll just say the numbers now because I'm not really worried about it, but we raised over 300,000 from private equity to get the film going. The initial funds of that was just our own money that was like, oh, here's our savings from, I'd worked as an employee at Google for like a year and a half, 2 years, and was like, let's just put that in a movie. So, but then but saying that to investors, this is a cool tidbit we learned. As soon as I told investors that I had put up the first capital, which I was like cagey about saying, they were all like, "Oh, you're actually committed
Oh, you have
financially
skin in
to
the
this
game?
film," and I
Okay,
was
good.
like, "Okay," and that actually opened the door for some investment. And then the next real big round of cash we got was because we had allocated money. Was we did get qualify for the lower tier of our state's tax incentive program, which brought in, I think by the end of our first initial raise, it ended up being about $90,000 from the state because we spent somewhere over 400,000 in state, and we got 20% back on that. So it's like,
Yeah, that was a huge win for us. Again, I had never applied for a tax incentive before, and I remember emailing the film commission. I think it was June or something, and their new fiscal year was starting in July, and they were like, apply immediately, and I was like, okay, and I didn't feel ready to apply, and so we really we figured out a budget and a projected spend, and all the things, and applied for it. And the day that we got the news that we won the grant, or we're going to receive the grant, I think we had like a massive dance party in the kitchen. We were just like blown
Yeah.
away.
did it.
I don't know, I feel like those things are so hard, to lock down or get or qualify for, and I never considered that we'd be even able to do it, or whatever. And so that was a really big win for us.
And then we overspent. No, we raised more
Never
money
been
to
done
do.
before in
The
indie film.
scope got bigger, and we showed the film in its, in a rough cut to some former studio executives, and they were like, "This needs to be bigger. You need more monsters, more explosions." And we're like, "Okay." And the tragedy is that was great advice from a studio perspective who has the backing, but we put a lot more money, so we raised more money and shot it and made it bigger. And the scope that I think Darren, you're speaking to, it's we did it. We burnt the midnight oil for 3 years straight, I feel like, to get the film to a place where it was like really spectacular. But ultimately, yeah, it was like
Well, and
it was
what we didn't have money to pay for, we provided in-kind services
Yeah.
for. So I mean, I think Boston, you spent the bulk of your time in Boston edited the movie for the most part and did a lot of the visual effects, and didn't receive a dime for that. So there's a lot of in-kind services that this movie, I didn't pay myself as an actor, I didn't pay myself as a producer, and I would not recommend that to most people. But we felt like this was also kind of advice that we took from another UPM that helped us break down the script. And what he was like, okay, if you're going to accomplish this on this budget, which at the time it was like 400 or 500 that we had initially planned for, he was like, you guys are not taking a paycheck, and you're going to put all that money on the screen as much as possible. So that was advice that we took from somebody else, and hence why I ended up getting an ad agency job, and so basically kind of like paying for the movie through
Yeah.
paying for our life in other ways, so.
bankrolling the company while we kept going,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, and I don't think that I know there's not a filmmaker in this podcast right now that hasn't put sweat equity into their first feature. I
Yeah.
think that's a traditional way of getting things done. But it's amazing just the amount of resources that you guys all pulled together, even from it seems like you did have some equity investors, and you did a crowdfunding campaign at some point.
Yeah, and so we closed out to really afford the final push, especially with our marketing. We crowdfunded.
And music too.
Yeah, and my advice, I think, especially to your listeners, is like we postponed doing a crowdfunding campaign. We started planning a crowdfunding campaign a year before the film was like, actually before we even finished our pickup shots for we shot basically 80% of the film in 2020, and then we postponed about 20% of the film because we were trying to attract some bigger talent to it. which didn't quite pan out, but we finished the film. Before we did that, we started talking about doing crowdfunding. And again, similar, people we were talking to in what we thought was the distribution world were like, don't you dare crowdfund. Don't crowdfund. It's such a bad idea.
Distributors don't like it. They won't take your movie if you've done a crowdfunding campaign.
And that just wasn't the case and isn't the case. And if there's a distributor who is poo-pooing crowdfunding, I just go find a different one is my for indie films. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So yeah, we learned that lesson a little bit too late. And if I was doing it again, now that I've learned more about that, we would have started there with a first film and see where things go. Yeah.
And our crowdfunding campaign overlapped with our festival tour, so we were trying to do both at the same time, and it was very, very time consuming and complex. And and I was honestly still working full time, and our kid was a year old. So there was a lot going on, at that time.
Yeah.
What was driving you guys through all that? Not that you didn't have a reason to be driven, but I'm just curious because that's a lot. And I do think that it takes a director producer team who are all in that way to do it. But what was it for you guys that was driving you to put all of that sweat equity, all that time and effort into this project?
Delusions of grandeur, I think. Right?
Yeah, because you're thinking, oh, I'm going to make this, and as soon as it's made, people are just going to line up and...
They're just going to, round the block. This is going to be... And I think there's video, and I did this as a joke, but also this is, as funny as it sounds, it's what kind of propelled us is I made videos where we're probably sitting there in the car, and we're like, we didn't know... Did we know while we were making this that it was going to have the worldwide cultural impact that it does? Yes, we knew it the whole time. No, but it was just I had to... At literally, I don't know, 11 o'clock, 12, 1 in the morning when I'm working on a visual effects shot that's going to be 2 seconds long, but I've been working on it for 3 days. I think there is this piece of you that it's you are possessed. And I don't mean that in a negative or demonic way, but just there's a quote by John Baldessari that I really love that I think everyone should look up, but it's that, sorry, I should look it up and memorize it. I'm just going to paraphrase it, unfortunately, but he basically says, you have to be, I don't want to say possessed. You have to be possessed, which you can't will. You can't will yourself to be driven by your art. It really will pull you. And I think that idea is something that I really latched onto is when I don't want to sleep because of my art, then yeah, you keep following that. And it's not to say that isn't something you can't manufacture, but I think it's available to everyone. There are things that will keep you awake at night thinking about it. And if those things are keeping you awake, write that script about that thing, So, and then ultimately, once there was that debt of not just wealth and financial debt to our investors, to ourselves, to the people who collaborated with us, we owed finishing this film to everyone who had dedicated the extra nights and weekends and low pay or whatever. We owed that film to them, not just to ourselves, and therefore also believing that this was going to be beneficial for everyone in the end propelled me.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel even from the time we started sharing the script to our potential DP, and when we were sharing it with our potential cast and people were giving us feedback or we're doing table reads, we felt propelled by the project itself and the people that gave us positive feedback, for instance, our DP was I have to make this movie, and then our lead, Casey Clyde, who was this is a dream role. You guys, this would be so incredible to make, And so I think that we felt very supported by those who were on our team as well. And our music composer, same deal. He came out and knocked it out of the park on our score and just killed it for us because he was so passionate about the project itself that I think it was those wins throughout the entire process over 3 to 4 years that we really felt so excited by. And that lasted through we screened in Italy and we screened in London at 2 pretty big film festivals. And these British dudes come up to us and they're like, Boston Ready, we love your effing movie, and they're just they're, and so I feel it was tiny moments like that where we were able to pick ourselves off the ground a bit, because there were some pretty dark times. There were some our servers got hacked by Russians or something at one point, and we thought we lost all the footage, not all the footage. We definitely had backups, but we thought we lost a lot of work. And
there's 2 days of principal photography that were only in one instance which we didn't realize. And then it was like we had our server was actually ransomwared, and luckily that wasn't accessed. But it was like for 2 weeks straight, we thought we'd lost like, and that would have been like $40,000 worth of production.
We were just like we were like
Yeah.
sitting on it, just like dying the whole just like so yeah,
Yeah.
there's been some definite like ups and downs on the journey, and it's a slog.
Well, I don't think a film gets made without that level of kind of uncompromising passion. And you can say, oh, delusions of grandeur. But I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, like in a producer position, there has to be that level of never say die to get this made. And Darren, you're making a movie right now, Brotherhood, and you and Ross have to have that level of belief and commitment. Whether somebody's going to look at the script and go, nobody's ever going to see this, but I'm going to do the project. That may or may not happen. Now I'll back up and say that's not happening with Brotherhood because Brotherhood's an amazing project. But
Thank you.
you, as the producer, can't. No producer is going to do that for an independent film. And
No, I mean you're really, you guys took it literally and married each other, but like you have to marry you have to have that sort of unspoken, are you in 100%? Because I'm in 100%. Okay, good. Then we're both in and we're never going to question that again. And I've not for Ross is a force of nature. You're a force of nature, Garrett. So like I never had to worry about, man, is this going to happen? Is this project going to come together? No. It's more a question of am I going to make sure I'm showing up every day because I know that you guys are showing up every day. And it's a great motivator for me if and when I ever feel like any sense of doubt or uncertainty. It's zoom out. There's at least one other person who's 100% all in like I am. So we just keep going. But yeah, you have to have that or else there's plenty of other things we could be doing with our lives, with our jobs, with our time. It doesn't have to be this, but there is some weird compulsion that we get as filmmakers that this story has to be told and we're the ones who have to do it.
Yeah. I love what you said there too, where it's like that there's also a debt, a creative debt, but there's also that empowerment when you're the first time this happened, we were doing a little YouTube video and we'd gotten a sponsor who was going to pay us $60,000 for a YouTube video. And it was like, whoa. But when we had that money, we hired a crew. And it was like, as soon as I had that experience for the first time, and this was years before we made the feature, it was like, just because, and this is sort of like a Casey Neistat thing, just because I had pressed the upload button, just because I had gone out and tried, and I reached out and I found this sponsor, I approached them even, and because I had done that work, all of a sudden people had jobs. And it was like, oh, this is cool. This is what I think the joy of being producer is. And then to clarify what I was, so I got the quote wrong, but well, to clarify the quote, John Paul Desari said, talent is cheap. You have to be possessed or obsessed, rather. You really have to feel like you cannot not do art. And that is something you can't will. So
Yeah,
just
that
feeling like you
resonates.
can't not do this, you know?
Yeah.
So,
No, it's amazing.
Okay, so you make the movie through your blood, sweat, and tears. And Boston, again, I was following like where you're doing creation, live creation, as far as hey, we're gonna go through this After Effects training. We're gonna put headlights on this nighttime shot on a truck, and
I'm
it's
so
like
glad you were one of the 4 people on that live stream.
yeah. But whatever. But what I loved about it is you're just trying. You're just like doing, hey, this I think this is gonna work, whether it works or not. This is what I have to do in order to will this movie into existence.
Yeah.
And then it happens. And then from my perspective, suddenly you're doing like premieres and screenings and it's at festivals and I'm just like cheering from my seat going, they did it. That's the filmmaker's dream, whether or not it makes a buck or not. Like that experience that you're having is, I think that's one of the joys of independent film.
Yeah.
So what is that like from going, okay, we took 6 years to make this and now here we are in front of a theater full of people.
Think that is the piece where I want every filmmaker, especially anyone listening to this, to know like this year, next year, whenever your film is done, there's a festival and there's a little film reel right here in our frame. It's a golden film reel. It's actually an award from a festival that gave us the best comedy feature. and it was the grand jury prize, and like at that we were not anticipating.
We were, like, joking during the festival because we went all in on this festival. We went through the whole week and we networked and we met people, and like, you know, they're talking about the award ceremony, and we know what our film is. It's not some like artsy, edgy movie that's like gonna, you know, burst through boundaries or whatever. But like,
It's the palate. This was a lady we ran into at this film festival was like, your film is a palate cleanser.
like, it's a palate cleanser.
It is a family friendly, just silly alien movie we all needed while we're watching, like, you know, these films with, you know, dark subject matter or just intense drama. It was so nice.
And we were making fun of ourselves like the night before or something. We're like, because the award ceremony was the next morning, and we were like, yeah, if we win an award, it'll be like the best like sci-fi Utah.
And now the best film in the category of science fiction comedy written in Utah goes to.
And it was funny because like the movie that won an award before ours, like the runner-up movie in the comedy, you know, was like one of those really awkward, angsty comedies, and you know, and so I was literally sitting there. I was like, "There's no way we're gonna win the next award," and then, you know, we did, and it was an incredible. I don't know, it just felt very validating.
And then I think the takeaway the takeaway for me was like, there are awards waiting for the listeners of this podcast. Like there are awards that are ready to be given for your film, and I think that's really cool because once it's done, you put it out there, and there will be the people who, like the guy in the UK who loved our film. He's the one who helped us place in a number of festivals. He's like, oh, I also know the programmers of this festival. You absolutely should apply to this festival in Italy. Next thing you know, we're going to Italy. And it was just like, it's there. So it just creating good work leads to opportunity. And then, you know, opportunity begets more good work and more opportunity. So, yeah.
What did you find was the biggest benefit from doing a festival run like that? Because I've never done it. Garrett, I mean, you put Carpenter into a couple of festivals, but I wasn't involved in those other than the local Zion's Film Fest, which I'm repping on my shirt today.
Oh, what's the matter?
By the way, I was one of the judges for when the Carpenter played at Ziff, and I was like blown away by your movie. I was like, what is this? Like, star Jesus movie that's happening right now.
I called it the Muay Thai Jesus film. And I was like, yeah, what awards can that win?
Yeah, of course.
Well, we appreciate the awards.
And the nominee is...
But yes, the question is, tell us about that experience and what did you get from it? Because I'm sure there's a lot of filmmakers who are like, do I do that route? Do I go straight to DVD route? Do I go straight to streaming route? I guess now, not DVD anymore. What's a DVD? What was that decision? What was that process like making the decision? And what did you get from it?
Yeah, well, I think, again, we learned a little bit the hard way. We missed the prime time for our movie to go through the festival circuit. So we waited beyond, like, there's a great festival circuit for genre films from like August through December, basically. And we waited to submit because we were hoping to get into some top tier film festivals that were, you know, early in the spring. And so we actually had a very, very truncated film festival run, which was kind of by accident. But we ended up getting into an Oscar qualifying film festival in Rhode Island called Flickers, which honestly we'd never heard of, but we went and it was huge. It was 42 years old. It was, you know, and we met like Oscar nominated people there. And I wish we had kind of realized what we were sooner in terms of like, oh, you just play at the best genre film festivals that you can earlier, because we probably not lost, but we waited about 8 months, was it, or longer even, to get our film out into the wild. So
I think that I would change this. This was really interesting. There were two tactical things we did which proved not to be very good. One was we didn't want to have a timestamp on our movie saying that it came out in 2023.
Yeah.
Because we knew we wouldn't be releasing till 24 or 25, and we didn't want that to help hurt sales.
We wanted an old movie, you know,
and even that's like old guard stuff that's not really, I think, pertinent anymore.
Yeah.
I think that the world's changed enough that you and also approach. So what we didn't do is apply for genre festivals, and genre for sci-fi, horror, all that. It starts really in that, you know, August, September, October, November period, and we missed the 23 run of that. And then we got a distributor who literally booked deals. So we were already sold by that time the next year. So if we had just played those festivals, yes, we would have had a festival release in 23, but I don't think that would have affected the finances. So my advice is know what festivals are good for your film, and then I also think of it like going on tour with a band, where if you're like, oh, I'm going to go play Cannes, I'm going to go play Sundance or South by Southwest. It's like, sure, you might be able to be one of the 10,000 films that luckily gets the one slot available to an indie that they've never heard of. But the other side of that is like, think of it like playing a big stadium in a town you've never been to. If you don't have fans already in that town, they're not going to, they want to attract the people, attract the products, that meet their fan base. So think about playing these regional festivals, like going to the Hole in the Wall theater that books 100, 200, 1,000 people, but they love faith-based films or action martial arts films or whatever your thing is. For us, sci-fi action, like find those festivals, because those audiences, there's diehard audiences who want to see your thing. And I would have rather spent a full year just going festival to festival, meeting 10 more diehard fans who are going to follow us over the next year. And then they're all going to buy it on Amazon. They're all going to leave a review by the time you're released. If you get their email and you can remind them, hey, we're about to go live. So that's kind of, I think, the benefit that I would do now is treat a festival like going on tour with your band and meeting your groupies and like, I don't know if these terms are offensive to anybody, but it's like but building genuine connection with people who care deeply about the art that you're creating, from its genre, from its perspective. And then
and we really did the film festival circuit so that we could say that we got into them and could have the laurels, and it was just a little bit of clout as we did the PR and the publicity that our distributor helped us with the next year. And so we got some additional perks, like the New York Times featured us as one of the top 5 sci-fi movies to stream now, and like we were floored by that. But honestly, if we hadn't have done a film festival route, it probably wouldn't have changed our distribution that much.
That came off the back of probably being in like Fright Fest, which is in London, which is a bigger, horror themed festival. That and the Sci-Fi Fest in Italy, Trieste Sci-Fi.
Science and fiction
like
festival.
Those probably gave whoever was writing for the New York Times, like, oh, this has clout. This is something that actually adjudicators and people who have taste believe in. So they watch it, they agree.
The Hollywood Reporter picked us up because of the film festival, so there was a little bit of buzz about us. And then when our distributor did a formal publicity campaign, it just helped with the sales. And we had a pretty good transactional run when the movie first was released. It was really awesome. So
how did that distributor come about? Because you just floated past the fact that you got a distributor in all of this. Did you line it up beforehand, or was it during production, after production? How did that come about?
We were shopping distributors for a while, and then Boston took a swing and went to FilmQuest here locally.
Yeah, I attended FilmQuest, which I love to go to every year, just because of they do this thing called Camp Cthulhu, where they have all kinds of people come in and talk about this, that, and the other thing, whether it's marketing a film, in this case, distributing, right? So there were 3 distributors who attended FilmQuest, and they were invited by and to put in perspective, if you don't know what that is, in Provo, Utah, and they have a genre festival. It's run by Jonathan Martin, but really fun and just some of the best genre films, shorts, and features around the world. So they play at this festival, but they brought this distributor in, and I just was in he was in a panel. I started asking questions. I was like, so hypothetically, let's say you've written a sci-fi action feature film, and I start we had finished the film literally like that week or a couple of weeks before. Like our final sound mix was done about a month before maybe this festival. And again, we didn't go to the festival because we were thinking we weren't going to release. Should have thought that through. But talked to this distributor, and then I show him my trailer, and he's like, send me this. I'll take a look.
And literally AFM was like the next week. And so there was a lot of pressure because we were getting pressure from other sales reps to take the film to AFM. Like it felt like a pressure cooker at the time. I feel like looking back, it wasn't that big a deal, but we had several people who were waiting for our answer. Like, can we rep your film at AFM in a week? When we meet this new guy that we hadn't. And honestly, we've been thrilled with him. He
So that was SNR Films, which is Skatena and Rossner. So Gato Skatena. I met him, talked with him, and I was really not nervous or just like I wasn't hesitant to just show this guy my film and say cool, whatever. And I think that's something that I've seen maybe some independent filmmakers, they're nervous about that whole relationship. And I think just being brazen about it and being like, this is my film, what can you do for it? But he basically gave us this really incredible offer, and because he loved the film, they repped our film, and they started as our sales rep internationally and then domestically, and they went out to all rights buyers, and they just pounded the pavement for a year. Well, now it's like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
They're still going,
making
doing
pavement
their
for
work,
us.
and I could, and
Amazing.
they'll be our partner. I'll make and distribute a film with them for as long as I can make them. So, yeah.
Well, and I want to say, like, I feel like our trailer, we had a trailer cut for at least a year and a half to 2 years before that. And that trailer opened more doors for us with potential buyers, potential sales reps, potential distributors for quite some time. So we weren't that worried about getting distribution or a sales rep. It was just a matter of choosing the right one, because we were really nervous because we just heard horror stories about being taken advantage of and people not working well for you, and we couldn't be more pleased with the partner that we ended up with, because he
Great.
really is like a fan of our movie and hustles for it, and I couldn't ask for anything more than that.
So that's our advice, I guess, is like to
Yeah.
indie filmmakers, is like find people who really care, who are genuine, and the contracts got like more we got more connected, and they became our distributor as time went on, which I don't know how common of a story that can be, but they started just as the sales rep, and then as things became, they said, we can do this territory, we can do this deal, and we just took it one at a time, and now we built a good relationship. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, and the film has made their job easy because it would, not that it's ever easy to sell film,
yeah.
but I mean, you guys have made an amazing film. You have an amazing trailer. You have great key art. This is like a fun genre movie, and your cast is outstanding.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a sales agent where they're going, "Huh, what films can I look at?" And they see something like that, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's kind of a no-brainer for them." So it's
Yeah.
good. A credit to your decisions leading up to that point. And to hear that you've been pleased with that relationship is awesome, because we need more of that, and we need so often it's the other way around, and you go, oh, I haven't
Well, I
heard
feel
from my
like
sales agent.
the distribution world is it's old. Like there's a lot of history there, and there's a lot of old ways of buying and selling movies, but there's also a huge new developing landscape, and that's something that we feel like SNR is really on top of, is just staying on top of the trends and even getting ahead of them a little bit, and keeping the filmmakers that they work with informed about those trends. And so
Yeah,
we feel, not that we like have, we're future proofing our next movie necessarily, but like we just feel a lot more informed, because we weren't informed really at all when we made Alien Country on the ins and outs of selling. But I feel like now, like, we have a partner who really has our back and wants us to succeed in making amazing movies for the next time around. So
Amazing.
so it's great segue into next time around. You've been through this, what are we at, 6 years process of the
Yeah.
idea to now kind of where we are now. And I'm sure if it's anything like me during making the film, you're going through every emotion and every stage of like, oh, this is going to be amazing, to what am I doing with my life? Why don't I just quit everything?
Yeah, you're talking to your buddies and you're like, what are you working on? And they're like, well, I'm doing a deal and they're in some tech industry. And you're like, oh, that's funny because I made a funny movie about aliens in a small town. And what am I doing?
Yeah, my brother-in-law
I
is
swear
like
this
that.
is good for humanity.
Yeah. But so that being said, where are you as far as next project, and how will it benefit from what you've learned from this one?
Yeah, I have, are you going to let me go? Because I'm in the deep in. So, yeah, we actually booked this call around the time so today I submitted at noon the half of the next script that I'm writing. So we're writing a movie that's a little bit more in the I would compare it to the genre of maybe Severance, but it's a story of a husband and wife who move into their dream home, and the husband discovers that this new spark and excitement in his marriage isn't his wife, but actually a doppelganger that's living somewhere inside of the house. Deadly doppelganger. And so that's a fun, I guess you could call it, but also psychological thriller story just about the people that we present ourselves as, and the difficulty of being truly present but being truly honest with your partner and significant other, and which is becoming, I guess, a theme of like what I'm writing. The Alien Country was a couple story, and there's another couple, so not everything will just be about couples, but
versus taking in a relationship, and what are you willing to give, and what are you, and versus what are you taking in a relationship, and is that healthy or not healthy? Are you losing your identity in the relationship? And so
yeah. This one's a bit of a pivot in the style of how we're going about making it. In so much to say that this idea has been like the universe has sort of been pulling at it. I pitched a month ago. I'm like, hey, I've written 3 films, at least short films, and they're story ideas. I have one about a dragon. I have one about a spider. I have one about a doppelganger. And I just put these out on the internet and said, which one sounds interesting, and left that open. And it was universally, we got about like 80-20 or 70-30. People just wanted the doppelganger film, and it was a pitch. I like explained that pitch. I showed them some of the ideas. And I think what I really want to be doing, and we wanted to do for Alien Country, was really allow for audience participation, or community participation as we create it from the very script. So I now have, as of today, noon o'clock, by the time Artemis 2 is around the far side of the moon, we had 60 pages of draft 1 done. So yeah, it'll be probably in that hour and a half to 2 hour. I try to keep movies tighter. As you save money, the shorter you are. The longer it gets, it just costs more money at this stage.
Don't we know it?
But yeah, that film, that's the next one we'll do, and I really want to build it, with the people who want to build it. I've even gone as far as to say, like, there's a lot of critics out there, and I want to approach everyone who wrote a review on our film and say, you're really good at dissecting films. Would you like to come create one? And even say to the critics, like, come join us and weigh in on the script phase, so that we're not waiting till the end to get your really powerful or scathing notes. So anyway, that's what we're up to. So that's called Significant Others.
Working title.
That's outstanding. I love it. I love it that you're still obsessed or possessed or driven or whatever it is, and I think that's not many make a second film, and so to see you do that and go, okay, what you've learned will have so much value, I think, in what you're doing now, including reaching out to the audience beforehand. That's so cool.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best of luck for it. Very cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you having us as well on the call, and to talk about our little crazy alien movie. If you haven't seen it, go see it out there in Radioland.
Yeah, and we'll need to put a link to it in the show notes. But definitely check out the trailer, and it won't stop there. You won't stop there once you see the trailer. You're like, okay, yeah, I got to see this thing, and it's very, very fun.
Very fun ride. Yeah, and thank you both for coming on, because it's always great to talk with people who have done it, and we're all nodding along the whole time, like, yep, I know that feeling and I know that phase, and that's how it is. And it's not like we're trying to scare people away from this, but we are trying to say, it's fun, it's possible, it's hard, it's difficult, it's draining, but it's worth it. So we appreciate you sharing your story as well with us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Darren, any other notes? You're going into production here in 2 weeks?
Less than 2 weeks. We're a week and a half away. We start April 16th filming Brotherhood, and my goodness, it came too fast. I thought we were going to be cruising, because I was like, I'm demanding 6 months of development of my director. And he was really poo-pooing that idea. He's like, how about 2 or 3? I was like, dude, it's a musical. We got a lot to do. And now that we're at like 6 month mark, and
that was 6 months ago. Yeah.
That was 6 months ago. And he's like,
That's
can I have 2 more months?
incredible.
Can I have 3
Good
more
for
months?
you.
Oh, yeah, I would love a couple more months, but every movie has its own timeline, and every movie has, especially the ones where, there's a God element involved. It feels like there's a timeline that's not ours, and we're just showing up every day doing the work as best as we can. So excited for this one.
Marcy Gibney and I go way back, so maybe I'll have to shoot her a text and sneak onto set sometime.
Please do. You don't have to sneak. Just tell them my name, and you'll be there. It'll be great.
I think it's also super important to just point out that, like, I can't believe you're doing a podcast while you're in this close to
100%.
pre-production.
You have the brains.
That's superhuman. That's like, that's boss level, God level.
You know, I didn't do it for the podcast, but it works out nicely. We're shooting Tuesday through Saturday on this movie. So every Monday I've got free, and we're gonna be
Time.
recording through the entire thing. Unless
We're
someone
going to be hearing all of the wonderful war stories.
2 days off. We did we didn't have quite the same, well, we had a similar schedule. It depended. But yeah, when you're off, yeah, I just like melted for a day. I would just like sit on a couch, and anyway. I think the day after Principal Photography was the first, like we binged. It was the Queen's Gambit way back when was out, and it was just like I couldn't even get off the couch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, best of luck and
Thank
enjoy
you.
the ride.
And we'll definitely have you guys come visit set. It'll be a fun
Come
day.
visit set.
All right.
Good. Thank you. Congrats on another episode. And please send your comments or show notes or questions, and check out Alien Country before next week. Thanks, you guys.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
This season of Truly Independent is supported by the Help Them See Foundation. Help Them See is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting feature films that inspire faith, hope, and connection. By partnering with filmmakers, the Help Them See Foundation brings meaningful stories to life and shares them with audiences worldwide, making a lasting cultural impact through the power of cinema. Learn more and discover how you can be part of the movement by visiting helpthemseefoundation.org. Thanks for joining us. If you are enjoying Truly Independent, please share and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the journey. Today's episode was edited by Michael Bradford and produced by 3 Coin Productions.